Cam Newton has signed with the New England Patriots, and now some of the free agent pieces are starting to fall into place. Obviously, Tom Brady also going to run it back with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but I wanted to take an opportunity right now to go through some predictions of where these guys could end up. And we'll start with Cam Newton because obviously he is with the New England Patriots. A lot of people are very dismissive of this move. But for me, when I look at what Cam was able to do last year, and there were some games where he popped and there were some games where he didn't play very well, but you have to realize the New England Patriots likely had the most opt-outs for last year. They didn't have a great receiving core. And now you're giving Cam Newton an opportunity to spend a year getting familiar with the system and to go out there and make some noise. Obviously, this does not preclude the New England Patriots from making some other moves. They could draft a quarterback. Cam Newton could be a bridge. But I think Cam Newton's a pretty good option. He's a pretty good safety school. He's a pretty good, like, hey, if I don't find a date for the thing, will you? Okay, yeah, we'll roll together. You know he's a lot of fun. It's going to be a good time. I think it's a pretty good option for him. Now, it does lead to the question, what wide receiver? And if we start looking at the wide receiver dominoes as those are going to start to fall. Let's take a look. Obviously, Chris Godwin is going to remain with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Allen Robinson, franchise tagged by the Chicago Bears. So to me, the best free agent option at the wide receiver position is Kenny Golladay, a man who did battle some injuries. But when you talk about upside, I look at Kenny Golladay as probably the number one option moving forward at the wide receiver position. A guy who can get deep, can stretch the field. There's going to be a lot of interested teams in him. Now let's start. It's not going to be the Packers because we've known the Packers' history. And I know Packer Twitter wants us to believe they're going to be all in on a wide receiver. I'm not going to believe it. I really do think that New England's going to be in play for Kenny Golladay. I do believe that Philadelphia would be a nice option for him as well. Philadelphia expressed an interest in building around Jalen Hurts, but I really do believe Kenny Golladay just makes the most sense for the New England Patriots. I know it might not be the best fantasy fit. I mean, for all these, it'd be like, go to Kansas City and play with Mahomes, although that's not great because Tyreek Hill's there. But I really do believe because the New England Patriots have a lot of cap space and they need to be really aggressive. And if you think that Bill Belichick is sitting there watching Tom Brady build his super team and is not going to go out there in the free agent market and go after a guy like Kenny Golladay, and I think that's not going to be the only move that they make. So Kenny Golladay, to me, the most attractive receiver on the board. I'm going to say he goes to the New England Patriots. Although it would be very Patriots-like if T.Y. Hilton was released and he ended up going to New England. Like, oh, that just seems like a situation where that's a Patriots move. Although it's a little bit different without Tom Brady. Maybe T.Y. Hilton goes down and plays with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. There's a lot of interesting things. What's up, Schomburg? What's up, everybody? Thomas, Jay, good to see you guys. Thank you for hanging out. Let's go through. Let's try to stick with the wide receiver position and go through there. We will go back. We'll talk about Aaron Jones and some of these other guys. And of course, I do know that like players like Joe Thuney, which we're not starting a guard in fantasy football, but where he ends up is going to be very important. And I know that let's talk about this for a moment too. The Kansas City Chiefs released Eric Fisher, Mitchell Schwartz, and I know a lot of people are like, what are they thinking? Did you not watch the Super Bowl? But that was the point. Okay, Eric Fisher is not going to return this season, at least not in the first half of the year. He's on the wrong side of 30. Why are you paying this guy? Mitchell Schwartz is likely going to retire. Why would you pay either one of these guys? I know everybody thinks that it's dire. It's going to be okay for the Kansas City Chiefs. Stop freaking out. They will be just fine. And we don't really have any sympathy for them anyways. But let's talk about some of the other wide receivers who are going to be out there. Will Fuller is going to be another guy who's going to be very interesting, a slot guy who can make a lot of noise. And some of the teams, obviously, the Green Bay Packers is one that everybody just wants to fantasy book. They just assume that he's going to go and he's going to play there. I don't see it. And I know that the Packer fans love to, like, oh, Allen Robinson made such an error. Have you ever noticed that all these receivers will do whatever it takes to play with Tom Brady? Who was the last big name free agent who wanted to go play in Green Bay? I don't know. Maybe that means nothing. I'm just saying it's very interesting to me. So Will Fuller, Green Bay is going to be in the mix. Philadelphia, the Ravens, all those teams that we kind of mentioned. I know this is probably going to be a dumb prediction, and I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too far into the narratives, but DeAndre Hopkins is in Arizona. J.J. Watt is in Arizona. Is it outlandish to think that Will Fuller could end up with a team like the Arizona Cardinals? Now, I know a lot of people will see that John Brown was released, and we love Gabe Davis next year. I know it's Gabe Davis season. Everybody's going to be fired up about him. But John Brown's going to be available. I know a lot of people will say, well, maybe he goes and plays there. But what about John Brown if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do not return with Antonio Brown? If John Brown has a reunion with Bruce Arians in Tampa Bay, Will Fuller goes to the Arizona Cardinals. That's kind of a fun little option right there. Could you imagine? Could you imagine the indignity? Could you imagine being Deshaun Watson and watching Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins playing with Kyler Murray in the desert? That would be a little bit much. So I would love to see him go there. He is, again, I know that his injury history is going to be a concern for some people, but I think he goes out there and gets it done for the Arizona Cardinals. Curtis Samuel, another slot guy who, you know what? He could make a lot of sense in New England because New England could be of the mind that they have to sign a couple of wide receivers. If you bring in Kenny Golladay and you bring in Curtis Samuel to play the slot, then all of a sudden I think you have a pretty nice receiving core. And now Cam Newton is surrounded by some viable weapons, but the Philadelphia Eagles also need to be in the mix here. So I'm going to take Curtis Samuel for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think that'd be a pretty fun option for them. They need some help in the slot. And I think that's where Curtis Samuel comes in, plays a huge role for them. And again, going back to wanting to have some options for Jalen Hurts, this would be a fun little team. I would love to see Curtis Samuel with the Philadelphia Eagles. That'd make a nice little tandem right there. We also have JuJu Smith-Schuster, another slot wide receiver. And again, one of the teams that are going to be obviously the teams that we've been mentioning. But what about the New York Giants? The New York Giants love to target the slot receiver anytime they get near the end zone. For me, JuJu Smith makes a lot of sense in that instance. This is I don't think there's any team that had more red zone targets for their slot receivers last year. So I think you go out, you sign JuJu. I think he's a good player. I think the Steelers are pretty much ready to move on from him. I think JuJu is going to go. And, you don't want to take the brand into it because JuJu does a nice job on his brand outside of playing in the NFL. But I think that would be a pretty good option. We have JuJu Smith playing for the New York Giants. I think that would be a lot of fun. And some other guys, Hunter Henry, this is another player that I'm looking at. Might not change teams. I think that he's got a pretty good situation with the LA Chargers. He might be somebody that actually just ends up staying with the ball club. But if he was to move on, there is still a gap with the Carolina Panthers. And I think that Hunter Henry, because of course the Carolina Panthers are likely to move on from Teddy Bridgewater, either drafting a quarterback. They can still be in the mix for Deshaun Watson. Maybe they go some other direction. Maybe they I doubt they would bring in Ryan Fitzpatrick, but you know what? They're going to need some tight end help. I think Hunter Henry could work there. But you know what? If you're Hunter Henry and you got Justin Herbert there, why would you even think of moving? Like, you're locked. You're living in Costa Mesa, which is right down the street from me. It's not Huntington Beach, so it's nicer. I think that's a pretty good option for there. Hunter Henry going in that spot. Ryan Fitzpatrick going to return for another season. Be interesting to see where he ends up. He might just end up back with the Miami Dolphins. Corey Davis. This is a guy. Now, this here is a guy. Corey Davis finally started to show some of the promise he had last season. I do believe that he'll go out there. He'll find a nice fit. This could be somebody. This seems like such a Baltimore Ravens move. Like Baltimore will end up striking out on all the big name guys. They won't get Kenny Golladay or any of the aforementioned players. It would be fun to see them take a run at JuJu. But it seems like such a Ravens move to go out there and get Corey Davis. Like, hey, we got a receiver, guys. Yeah, it's Corey Davis, who was fine, who played very well. Like, he played well. Like, he opposite of A.J. Brown. I think he's got a perfect situation. And, you know, he responded because the Titans did not put the fifth-year option on him. But it'll be interesting to see where he ends up. Again, the Ravens, just to me, that just seems like such a Ravens move. I don't know why I'm laughing, because that obviously he could be a member of the Bears. That could end up being the situation. I did have one more. Did I have one more? Want to make sure. Hold on. Looking through my list, because I do want to go back. T.Y. Hilton, expected to move on. That, to me, T.Y. Hilton could end up with the Jacksonville Jags. I think that'd be pretty fun. He could go down to Miami, play with them. Veteran presence, a guy who could go and make a little, probably not a huge fantasy impact or not much of an impact at all, but a great locker room guy, somebody you want to get out there, somebody you just want on your team that I think is going to be pretty good. And Mark Ingram obviously just signed. Chris Carson. All right, let's go to the running backs. Now, Chris Carson is interesting to me. I'm not sure how big the market is going to be for him. I thought that Houston would have been an ideal situation for him. And if I might talk about David Johnson for a second, it's funny to me that, I put out there that David Johnson's going to end up being a pretty nice value for you in fantasy football this season. He gets targeted enough. He had 46 targets in 12 games last year. Will Fuller had 75. Duke Johnson had 35. So there's 110 targets that have left the team. So David Johnson figures in the mix, no matter who the quarterback is. Sometimes I wonder, do people understand how fantasy football is played? Like, I'm not drafting him as my RB1 or RB2, but as a flex guy, like he had what, close to double-digit touchdowns last year? Like he had 9-10 touchdowns. I know he had 2 receiving touchdowns. He might have had 8 touchdowns. He is not exciting. Like it's like being on a road trip and you're going to be eating at Taco Bell. It's like, it wasn't my first choice, but it's somewhat reliable. It's not, sometimes it's pretty damn good. Like sometimes I just want a Doritos Tacos Loco, and that's all I want, and it's fine, and it's satisfying, and I'll live with it. But it'll be interesting. I think that he can come out and be a player. If you're drafting him the 8th round, he might fall even further because Mark Ingram is there. So now you're getting him at a bargain. Like, why do people, I don't know. I think that sometimes the kids on social media just want to be so snarky, like, oh, that guy's garbage. Like, well, that's why I'm not drafting him in the first round. Okay, but it's a late round pick and a 9th round pick? I'll happily take David Johnson. Don't take him. This is probably why you don't win fantasy leagues. But the running back that everybody's going to have eyes on is Aaron Jones. And I know that it was a surprise to a lot of Packer fans that he was not franchise tagged. And my question or my comment for them is, do you not understand the way the Packers work? They drafted their running back of the future last season with A.J. Dillon. And you know what? A.J. Dillon looked pretty damn good. So it would have made no sense to franchise tag Aaron Jones. And I know that they're saying the proper lip service of, hey, we're still hopeful to make a deal for Aaron Jones. They're not going to do it. It is like whenever a couple breaks up and they're like, oh, we're going to remain friends. And then maybe, they hang out. They're cordial once or twice at some meetup, but ultimately they go their separate ways. And that's what's going to happen with Aaron Jones. They can talk about how they're going to co-parent or do anything like that. But ultimately, they're going to be going in separate directions. And one of the teams that makes the most sense to me is the Atlanta Falcons, a team that has been slowly but surely rebuilding their offensive line. They've got Arthur Smith coming in, a guy who, I'll be perfectly truthful with you. I wasn't sure what to expect when he was the offensive coordinator of the Tennessee Titans. I thought it was kind of a weird move. He was the tight ends coach, a former quality control guy who is now a head coach of an NFL team. It's amazing. It's been an amazing rise for Arthur Smith. So I see Aaron Jones going into Atlanta, and there are going to be some questions about who the running back is going to be, the quarterback, I should say. Matt Ryan is there now, obviously. But if the Falcons select a quarterback with the number 4 overall pick, they end up with Justin Fields, Mac Jones, somebody like that. Well, they're going to definitely need a running attack. To me, and I know how the economics of football work, and nobody wants to pay running backs anymore. And it seems like nobody wants to pay quarterbacks anymore, although Dak Prescott just signed a huge deal. I would say that Aaron Jones going to the Falcons makes a lot of sense. I just think that would be a perfect opportunity for him. It would all make sense. And then maybe Matt Ryan gets into the mix of quarterbacks, of guys on the move. I'm already thinking about what the Bears are going to do. Because now the quarterbacks are falling off. With Cam Newton, what's Seattle going to do at a quarterback? Could Seattle end up with Matt Ryan, Jimmy Garoppolo, Teddy Bridgewater? I don't know. A lot of interesting things going on. But hey, make sure you like and subscribe this page. I think they say smash the like button, smash subscribe. Leave some predictions of your own. This is going to be an opportunity for you guys to come back and once again make fun of me for my predictions being shit. So go out, do all that stuff. Thank you for hanging out today. And I'll be here with the updates over the next couple of weeks. We'll round it all up to tell you what it's going to mean in fantasy football. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. Oh, Heidi, what's going on? Oh my gosh, Heidi, you came on right at the last second, but good to see you. Thanks for hanging out. Really appreciate it. And click the bell, whatever that means. Yeah, Michael, thank you. Michael Hamilton, click the bell, because then that means you're notified anytime we go live. And I've been doing this. I don't know if you've noticed. I've been doing this periodically, and we've been making it a thing. So thank you so much for being here. Good luck. And if something breaks, when Russell Wilson gets traded to the Bears over the next, if that happens, I'll be back. But otherwise, I'll see you guys in a few days. Take care.